Hey, what's up guys and gals? My name is Rick9G. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about Perfect Strangers, the 1980s television show that also went into the 90s with Bronson Pinchot starring, as well as Mark Linn-Baker. I'm going to get into this show because I think it is simply one of the best of the 80s era and often overlooked. I would actually make a bold claim and say that Perfect Strangers is one of the successors of I Love Lucy. What do I mean by that? I'm gonna get all into it and give you examples. And of course, down below, I'd love to know your thoughts, because if you really want me to continue a series just like this where I look into successors of TV shows like I Love Lucy, go ahead and like this video and leave your comments down below, because I think there are many shows that are closely resemble I Love Lucy. Now I have over 280 separate videos just on I Love Lucy, many tidbits, cool facts, unknown things that I think you will enjoy. But here, I'm going to kind of dissect I Love Lucy, talk a little bit about what type of show it is, the type of comedy, and really see what makes it unique. Because if you ask most people who are fans of the show or just know television, it's one of the most popular known TV shows of all time, or at least most memorable, favorite, all those wonderful accolades. Now, it is of course called a sitcom. Now, a sitcom stands for a situational comedy in which the humor comes from certain situations. I'll define that in just a little bit. Now, what was I Love Lucy? How did it come about? I've made many videos on that, but I'm going to do a brief summary. It used a 3-camera system setup which filmed the show pretty much with an audience that was present live. That is, the audience was looking at the performance while it was being recorded on film. It was a theater style setup that they used, developed by the main actor, Desi Arnaz Sr. Now, the writing itself was very focused on a specific plot, situations that are possible yet unlikely. I'm going to go over some of them and kind of compare them to Perfect Strangers because I think this is important. Now, physical comedy was a staple of I Love Lucy. It wasn't mandatory in every single episode, but it was a big chunk of the humor. Now, that of course means physically doing things, doing stunts, doing things with your body, which is very different from other types of comedy, which is more dialogue heavy, which would be something like Groucho Marx would do. But no, this is more focused on physical situations, and I do have to highlight that. There was a lot of stunts and even props. That's often overlooked. A lot of props were used in I Love Lucy, and real props. A lot of them were not fake. That added to the authenticity of the show. Now, I Love Lucy was centrally a husband and wife focused story. They had friends. It was a team of 4. That was a husband and wife, Lucy and Ricky, and then they had another couple. They had Fred and Ethel. I think that team of 4 is very important to look at when we understand I Love Lucy as well as Perfect Strangers. Now, it was very family friendly. It talked about everyday life, everyday situations. There was audience laughter present, and the dynamic was the 2 girls, Lucy and Ethel, or the dynamic of the husband, Ricky and Lucy, and it would alternate back and forth. Now, let's talk a little bit about Perfect Strangers. Of course, it was set mostly in the 80s, but went into the 90s. It focused similarly on city life. Now, I didn't mention, but I Love Lucy was set in New York City, whereas Perfect Strangers set in another big city, Chicago. It's also known as a sitcom. Now, it did use a 3-camera system, the same exact style that I Love Lucy used. It was theater styled. They had a audience present live during the actual performance that would later be filmed, of course, and it was set up in that way. Now, the writing, exactly the same as I Love Lucy, was focused on the plot, where we had physical comedy, props, stunts, all that stuff happened. Now, as well as the idea that it was family friendly as well, even though it took place in the 80s. And the 80s was a time where there were rough things on TV and in movies. Again, it still focused on everyday life. Audience laughter was present as well. Now, there was no husband-wife dynamic. There was boyfriend and girlfriend. There was 4 individuals like I Love Lucy. There was, of course, Balky. We have Larry and the 2 girlfriends. The 2 girlfriends are, of course, sub-characters. They weren't as popular as the 2 main guys. So it was a male-to-male type friendship / family relationship that they had. And that's really important because that duo, If you didn't believe the bond that they had, the show wouldn't have worked. Same thing with I Love Lucy. Now, as you can see, I focused on the very important things, the basic factors that made I Love Lucy unique, and the formula was continued by Perfect Strangers. Now, I do want to highlight here that there is I am no way alluding that there was plagiarism or cheating involved. No, it was the inspiration. New stories were made based on the foundations that I Love Lucy set. So let me talk about some of the episodes that use the same concept but use a different kind of story. Now let's talk about this Perfect Stranger episode. It's from season 3, episode 2. It's called Way to Go, Buddy. Now in this one, Larry discovers that he has gained 7 pounds, so he diets unsuccessfully, prompting Balky to give him a Meposian diet. Now, if you go to I Love Lucy, they have a very similar episode from season 1, episode 3. It's called The Diet. Now, in this one, Lucy is determined to lose some weight, and Ricky provides an incentive by telling her that she can appear in a show if she can fit into a size 12 dress. Now, this is a hilarious episode that uses a lot of slapstick and just physical comedy between Larry and Balky that is also seen between Lucy and Ethel. Now, it's nothing that is exactly copied or anything like that, but again, it's inspired, and it's really cool to see it in both series. Now, moving on from Perfect Strangers into the 7th episode of season 3, The Horn Blows at Midnight. Now in this one, there's a famous psychic that appears on the episode, and it visits the Chronicle. That is where the guys work. Now she goes into a trance and makes an elaborate prediction about Larry and that his life ends. If you move to I Love Lucy, there are 2 episodes that you could say this is a mashup. There is the Seance from season 1. In that one, we have pretty much a psychic seance type story. The concept of numerology is there as well. And even in the episode, Lucy thinks that Ricky's trying to murder her. There's the idea in the beginning of the episode that Lucy's quote unquote going to die, and Ethel shows her the card of death. It's pretty funny, and there are some allusions between both episodes from both series. Moving on to episode 11 of Perfect Strangers, it's called Couch Potato. It's a very simple premise. You have Larry and Balky, they get cable TV. So Balky becomes entranced watching all the shows he can. And of course, Larry's the one who's trying to break him out of this trance and get him to go back to normal life and stop being addicted to television. That is something that we do see in I Love Lucy in season 2. Ricky and Fred are television fans. They're pretty much in front of the TV the entire time watching a boxing match. The girls go on this crazy adventure where they try to cut their electricity so they can't watch TV anymore. They go to jail, all of these crazy things, and the boys don't even notice. So the idea of one talking about cable TV, there was no cable TV in the 50s, so it's an evolved form of the concept that was used in a different way. Very creative. Now moving on to episode 16, it's called Just Desserts. Now in this Perfect Strangers episode, Balky serves Larry, Jennifer, and Marianne, those are the girlfriends, with some bibi babkas. Basically, it's a type of dessert from Balky's native country of Mypos. Now in this one, Larry thinks it's so tasty, and he finds a way to get this product into production for fast profit. He says we should start a business and sell this product. If you notice, that's exactly the episode from I Love Lucy. It's kind of a mix between 2. The first half is more focused on the getting rich quick scheme, which you can see from the salad dressing episode where Lucy wants to become a millionaire by selling it. And then later on in the second half, they're actually making these, and it becomes really messy. All the desserts go everywhere. It's kind of chaotic. It's kind of reminiscent a little bit to the chaos from the chocolate episode and just how everything goes everywhere and there's chaos. And it's pretty cool to see 2 episodes like this kind of mashed together. What's great, there are some allusions back and forth, but then again, it's not a straight rip-off. It's more of an inspiration, which I think is totally genius. Now, episode 20 of Perfect Strangers, The Defiant Guys, in which Larry's not speaking to Balky. So Balky takes matters into his own hands and handcuffs them together before Larry's big meeting with the Chronicle publisher. And of course, he doesn't have the key. Are you an I Love Lucy fan? You're gonna know this episode from season 2, The Handcuffs. Very popular episode, really hilarious. It essentially started pretty much every movie or TV show that has to do with handcuffs gets inspired by this I Love Lucy episode, and it's great to see that Perfect Strangers has its own take on it. Now in the episode right after My Brother, Myself, you have Larry's brother coming to actually join the boys for a little bit of vacation time. And they find out that Larry's brother is successful, and Larry doesn't feel successful himself, so he starts making up all these things to make himself seem a little bit more successful in his eyes, a little bit more popular. And if you go to I Love Lucy from season 4, you will know the episode Mertz and Kurtz, in which kind of a similar thing happens. Fred's old vaudeville partner, that is his good friend, comes over and visits him after many, many years together, and Fred thinks that Barney, his best friend, is pretty much rich and very successful. And so Fred fibs about all the success he has in his life. And of course, it's all a lie, and it reminisces to this episode, which did a great job of changing things around a little bit, but doing its own thing. Now jumping to season 5 of Perfect Strangers, Hello Ball. Now in this one, it's Larry that is trying not to win at a golf game. Now he does this in order to win over Jennifer's father, that's his girlfriend, but Balky is better at the game than Larry had ever thought he was. Now this is essentially the four of them, the boys and their girlfriends, and of course the future father-in-law. They're going and they play golf together at a golf course, and that's very reminiscent to what's happening in I Love Lucy's The Golf Game from season 3, where you have all four of them playing golf and everyone's trying to one-up beat each other. Yes, there was a different premise, of course. The boys were trying to trick the girls into thinking that the rules were completely different, but this is where Perfect Strangers had a little bit of creativity there and completely changed the plot while using the same kind of setting and idea. And then we're going to look at A Horse is a Horse. That's the 4th episode from season 6 of Perfect Strangers. In this one, Larry convinces Balky to go in with him to buy a racehorse at a discount price, of course, in an attempt to win big on the track. But they soon find out that the horse may be on its last legs. Now, what's great about this, I Love Lucy essentially didn't make an episode on this. It's a Lucy Desi Comedy Hour, which is essentially I Love Lucy hour-long episodes. It's the one where Lucy wins a racehorse. Now, these guys bought the racehorse versus winning it, but there's a little bit of similarity in how they wanted to win big cash outs from it, and different kind of funny stunts happen that are reminiscent of each other. And like I said, it's a great way to use a similar concept of a racehorse, and let's change that just a little bit to make our own story, to fit our own characters and the own decade that was the 80s at the time. Thank you so much, guys and gals. I hope you enjoy this. What do you think? Are you a fan of Perfect Strangers, of I Love Lucy, of both? And let me tell you, you really should watch Perfect Strangers. I'm not just saying that. I'm enjoying it so much. I used to watch it a little bit as a kid, but of course as you grow up and watch it when you're older, it has a whole different meaning. I really think it's one of the greatest sitcoms ever. I'm not just saying that. I think it's definitely in the top 10. It is amazing, so well written, so pure. There's always a morality at the end, and it's just such a great show with two fantastic actors. I'm going to get more into the show. If you want to see that, let me know in the comments as well. We'll see you next time, and don't forget, guys and gals, be hopeful. Thank you so much to all the supporters I have on Patreon, especially my diamond tier patrons: Vito L, Tommy G, Ricky, David D, Citizen Kane, Sally N, and Grace U. If you want to find more exclusive content, visit my Patreon page, links in the description.